3872323.
LA filing number 16-7970.
WNXX, Jackson, KNXX, Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers, LA 21-12681, offices in Baton Rouge. Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. That means we're brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. 2 locations. Nicholson just south of campus, Bluebonnet in front of the Mall of Louisiana. Hope your work week is off to a good start and everybody stayed safe with those storms that rolled through last night. Appreciate you hanging out with us, Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali. Back there on the 1s and 2s, our normal Tuesday guests will be here in their normal spots. Glenn West talking Tigers at 1:30, Sharif Ishak at the bottom of hour number 2, talking Saints and Pels. Saints have agreed to terms on a 1-year contract with a free agent offensive lineman. I want to look at a Major League Baseball mock draft that came out a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't really had an opportunity to dive into that, and it's very, very relevant for LSU's signing class and the future of that baseball program. Speaking of LSU, Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team, the Nerdmaster General, as he is affectionately called by the D1 Baseball crew, is going to join us 1 hour from right now at 2 o'clock to talk about LSU's tournament hopes. We all know that we need LSU to sweep. That's what we feel. But what if they get 2 out of 3 and they have 12 and then they go to Hoover and they win some big games over there? What are the dynamics at play here over the next 10 days for LSU's baseball program? We'll talk to Mark Etheridge about that coming up at 2 o'clock. LSU basketball's got its opponents, so plenty to get to here over the next 2 hours, and we appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. 2 weeks ago, I came on these airwaves, and I tried not to sound preachy, but I think it may have come off that way to some. My point was, like, are we really complaining about things that we don't understand when we talk about LSU's quote-unquote unwillingness to spend money in the NIL game? When you look at defensive linemen that LSU has not gotten in this transfer portal cycle, do you really know what the dynamics were, what the dollar amounts were, who said yes, who said no, and what actually happened before you throw your hands up and really complain about the way LSU's running its football program? Because I felt like when you saw the commitments of Dominic Williams to Oklahoma and Simeon Barrow to Miami, a lot of LSU fans threw a lot of blame around at a lot of people. And I'm not suggesting that your feelings are unfounded. LSU has a need at defensive tackle, and they didn't go get the guys that we thought they might be able to land. And then you heard Brian Kelly come out later and say, we're not going to buy players. And I once again was like, well, yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying, but he's not saying they're completely out of the NIL game. Like, there's plenty of NIL available at LSU. It's obvious because they're recruiting at such a high level in high school. So I'm going to reserve my judgment on my reaction to the information that is available to me, not just exasperation for exasperation's sake. And this is where quality journalism comes in. And Wilson Alexander is a quality journalist right there at The Advocate covering the LSU football beat. And he has got a fantastic piece up at theadvocate.com right now. I highly, highly recommend you go read it because I'm not going to get to all of it. It's really well reported. It's very well done. It's very informative. And there is more to this piece that Wilson wrote than what I'm going to hit on because I'm limited in my time and we're going to move on to other topics. But I'm going to hit on what I considered the high points here from Wilson's reporting. He was able to speak with someone with knowledge of the Bayou Traditions Collective that spoke under the condition of anonymity so that he or she could speak freely on the topic. And the first number that comes out from this person on the inside that Wilson spoke with is the number that LSU allocated for the football team in 2023 and 2024. In 2023, Bayou Traditions allotted about $4 million to the football team. This year, that number has doubled. It is $8 million that LSU has ready to roll in Bayou Traditions for this team. Now, that source suggested that the median, meaning the middle, obviously, of the SEC expenditures moving forward is going to be about $10 million. The high end's going to be 13 to 15. The lower end's going to be 4 or so. And then if you look at the other conferences outside of the SEC and Big Ten, you're looking closer to $4 million for a lot of those programs. These are rough numbers, but you kind of understand that LSU's swimming in a pool that's larger, well, it's deeper than most of the teams in college football, but maybe not quite at the top of the Southeastern Conference. Now, Austin Thomas, LSU staffer who's the general manager of the football program, spoke on the record with Wilson for this story. And one of the quotes that stood out to me from Austin Thomas said that retention is the biggest key of all of this. And that is, to me, a telling quote about the philosophy that is held by the higher-ups in the LSU football program. We are not going to be in the business of going in the transfer portal and tossing around $1.3 million to get somebody to come in here for 6 months. You can earn a bunch of money at LSU, but here's the model. That's Harold Perkins. That's Will Campbell. That's Emory Jones. That's Jaden Daniels. You show up here, you do the things that we ask you to do from a development standpoint, you produce on Saturdays, there is plenty of money in these coffers over here to get you paid. And that's the way they want to do it. It's not necessarily a flat-out inducement up front, let's go. That's what we feel like, and I'm just guessing, but guessing based on some things that have been said now that we're 3 years in the rearview mirror. That's kind of what happened in College Station. We think there's a lot of money being thrown around for one-year mercenaries at Ole Miss. And it's not to suggest that's the wrong way to do it. It's just not the way that LSU wants to do it. They want to recruit high school players at a very high level, which they're doing. They want to get those players into their system for 3 and 4 years, and there is money available to you right there. Now, as Wilson continues with his reporting, Dominic Williams and Simeon Barrow, as this anonymous source within Bayou Traditions, he said those two guys in December, when the transfer portal opened, would have commanded about $400,000 to be signed. They entered in the spring portal window when there are very, very few defensive linemen to be had. We know this because we've been talking about defensive linemen for a month now. And they were both asking for 7-figure deals. And that right now is a non-starter for Brian Kelly and his football program. And I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what's being considered here. Because you could make a really good case that, hey, you don't have good enough defensive tackles to compete at a championship level. You need to get one of these guys. You have $8 million allotted for this team. You need to make sure that this guy gets his $1.1 million. And I wouldn't tell you you're wrong, just the way that you feel. But I can also sympathize with Brian Kelly going, we're building a program this way. We've made these promises to these players in our program that if you come in and do things the right way, you'll be compensated based on our collective and the great opportunities that are around here in Baton Rouge. And we're not going to just jump at the most available mid-tier player because we're desperate and pay him double what you just got. Because you don't want upheaval in the locker room. There was upheaval in that locker room in 2020, in 2021. There was some upheaval at the end of last year on defense. You're trying to steady the ship. And this goes back to the point that I made 2 weeks ago when I was talking about all this. There has never been a more volatile time in college locker rooms because of the transfer portal and NIL. The grass is always greener, and you can have your roster absolutely flip on its head and be gutted overnight if you don't watch it. And as enticing as it might be to go try to stretch the purse strings to get that one guy to come in, at what cost? Both financially and in your locker room. It's a tough balance to strike. These coaches make a ton of money, but it is a tough balance to strike. The last piece that was interesting to me in this piece by Wilson Alexander in The Advocate on LSU's collective and where LSU stands in the NIL game was the grassroots portion of it, as T-Bob said this morning. Basically, to just dumb it down, it's Joe Fan chipping in with monthly increments that are doable for whatever financial situation you may be in. Whether that's $25 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever the case may be, whatever you can chip in. And if you can get 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 fans on board with smaller increments monthly, that all of a sudden adds up pretty quickly to a nice chunk of change that you can sling around. The question is, are LSU fans willing to do that? Ole Miss has kind of made this Grove Collective a really cool thing. They've got a bunch of merchandise. They've got things you can purchase where you get the goods and some goes to the collective and players and whatnot. And they've done a really good job at engaging their fan base in the Grove Collective. That's something you can be a part of. It's something that it's an identity for them, and it's obviously paying dividends because they're able to get a lot of transfers that I don't think most people thought that Ole Miss would be in the market for when this whole thing started. The Grove Collective is going. Can that happen for LSU fans? Incidentally, if that's something you didn't know was possible and you'd like to do it, you can. BuyETraditions.com, it's all right there. You can sign up and start to contribute a little bit if you feel like that's something you want to do with your extra money. But in a time where we're looking at costs of things, and they're a lot, people are trying to make sure their finances are in order. Are you willing to step up and give a portion of your money to 20-year-old kids? T-Bob said this morning, he's like, I don't know if that's something I'm really excited about. The last piece of this puzzle that I want to talk about, and we'll kind of wrap the discussion, is, man, this is not have anything to do with LSU. This is just the scene as a whole. I can get on board fully with owners of professional sports teams negotiating with 40, 50, 65-year-old agents in a salary cap structured sports. That's a pretty black and white situation, and you get up there and you negotiate the deal, and the money is the money. And I can see and completely get on board with. I do not envy at all the people within college football organizations, college basketball organizations, those are probably the two that are most applicable, that are negotiating seven-figure deals with 20-year-olds and the people around them who oftentimes we know can have a handout. Like, that is a volatile spot that I don't want any part of. I know what I was doing when I was 20. Nobody needed to be negotiating multi-million-dollar deals with me. And that, to me, seems not fun and potentially comical. So it's a whole new world. A lot of us, myself very, very much included, don't exactly know how all this works and what those discussions sound like. But it's a lot of money, and it's happening everywhere. And I don't think anybody's certain where things are headed with how that market will look based on return on investment and how anxious boosters and fans are to continue to cut checks as we move year after year after year. Because once that $8 million is gone for this football season, you got to have more for next year and more for the next year and more for the next year. How long does that cycle go? I'm not sure. Probably depends on how your team performs on the field. And we won't learn that until starting up in September. So great story from Wilson Alexander over at The Advocate about LSU's collective by Traditions and how the NIL game works down here in Baton Rouge. Highly recommend head over to the website and check that out, because I did not hit on nearly all of the talking points that Wilson got to, but it was really interesting stuff. Our Tuesday shows are brought to you by Pluckers Wing Bar. When we come back, the New Orleans Saints have added a free agent to the list. Who is it? What does he do? What does it mean for the black and gold? We'll talk about that coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Well, there's probably some of you listening to this right now that don't have power. It's avoidable. The storms last night were really nasty. Caused a lot of damage to a lot of parts of our listening area. Trees down, power lines affected, fences down. I'm looking at my guy Beck, who had some issues in the backyard there. You can prevent power outages with the folks at Boudreaux's Electric. Certified Generac dealer, premier Generac home standby generator dealer. Means they're in the top 3% nationwide. Call them now, especially if your power's out. Don't have this happen again, especially as that heat starts to come in. Having no power, your house can be 95 degrees. Just not a tenable situation. Boudreaux's Electric can help you out with that. It's 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. Every Generac generator they sell you comes with a 7 to 10 year warranty. 7 to 10 years. And they monitor that generator 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so they'll know if there's some sort of issue they need to come out and rectify. So when that power goes out, that generator kicks on and you are taken care of at your home or your business. It's Boudreaux's Electric, 985-397-1562.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Power up your next project with John Deere Deals by Sunshine. Whether you're working hard or playing hard, our knowledgeable team will help you find the right product for you. Ask us about our amazing tractor package promotions. Learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
He's here. Anyone want a Coors Light?
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealers in Louisiana. LSU defensive lineman Dominic McKinley is here, and we'll talk recruiting with Shay Dixon. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
I'll be at Pluckers tonight for sports trivia, 8:30. Hope you can come out and join us. We're watching some baseball, MLB playoffs as well, NBA playoffs as well, and doing the trivia things. Come on out at 8:30 and win some gift cards out at Pluckers. New Orleans Saints back in the news. They continue to add to their roster here in the NFL's offseason. New Orleans Football's Nick Underhill reporting that the Saints have reached an agreement with free agent lineman Lucas Patrick on a 1-year deal. Patrick has been in the NFL for 7 years with the Packers and the Chicago Bears. He was an undrafted free agent from Duke, made the team with the Packers, spent some time there, and last year was the Bears' starting center for 15 games. Obviously, the Saints are pretty well set at center, but you're talking about a guy here in Lucas Patrick that has played 1,000 snaps at center and right guard. He's also played about half of that as a left guard. So he has played all three interior offensive line positions. We know the Saints' most pressing issues are at tackle, but you've addressed that with a first-round pick. You've addressed that to an extent with a couple of free agent signings. You're just looking for depth and proven bodies on the offensive front, and certainly Lucas Patrick is that. In my estimation, this is an insurance policy for Nick Saldiveri. Like, do we know whether or not Nick Saldiveri can play? No. Did he show some flashes last year? Sure. But he's far from a sure thing. At the very least, Patrick can come in there and give you serviceable reps if Saldiveri is not capable. You have to allot for injuries on the offensive line. You're just not going to get through a 17-game NFL season without nicks and bumps and bruises on the offensive line. We've seen that with the Saints every year. So I think this is a quality signing for them. It's a pro that's not too far past his prime that can play three positions on the offensive front. I think this is a very good signing for the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to look, not every single free agency signing because there's a lot of those, but you look at the Saints this offseason, and I continue to ring this bell because I think it's relevant. Chase Young, 1 year, fully guaranteed, $13 million contract on the defensive front. Olisameka Udo, offensive tackle, who was mentioned that you've addressed that a little bit in free agency, 1 year deal. Ugo Amadi, 1 year deal, re-signed him. Kaliki Hudson, linebacker, signed him to a 1 year deal. Jonathan Abram, 1 year deal. Stanley Morgan, 1 year deal. Cedric Wilson, well, that's a 2 year deal, but not a big one. Signed Nathan Peterman to a 1 year deal. Don't even know if he's going to make the team, but an older insurance policy for your young backup quarterbacks. Willie Gay, 1 year deal. You get the picture. Like, this is what the Saints' plan has been in the offseason. They are fortifying their roster with some inexpensive, proven starters like Willie Gay, Lucas Patrick. These guys have started. Jonathan Abram gave you good reps last year. Chase Young has a really high ceiling and very low risk in just a 1 year deal. No matter what Dennis Allen wants to say, no matter what Mickey Loomis wants to say, no matter what Gail Benson wants to say, there's been a little bit of a shift this offseason to accumulate young players because they took more draft picks than they generally take this year, didn't get too aggressive and trade up, didn't mortgage any picks coming up in coming drafts, and they're not creating these 3 and 4 year contracts where they're inevitably going to restructure money and shove it into the back end to try to manipulate the cap and fill out a most competitive roster they can. No, they're not doing that. They're signing 28, 29-year-old veteran players to 1 year, risk-free, inexpensive contracts in an effort to get the money back in order moving forward. I don't know how you could look at it any other way. And it's not like they're signing guys who are 38, 39 years old. They're not signing guys that have never played reclamation projects. They're just signing slightly below average league players, inexpensive deals, going to fill a team out this year. Is it going to be great? I don't know. But we're not going to hamstring ourselves anymore. And you will eventually, by doing this, shed those contracts, shed some of the bad contracts that are currently on your books, and have the ability to overhaul this roster back to a championship level product. It's so different than the conversation we have about the New Orleans Pelicans, where it's like, man, you've kind of got Zion and he's entering his prime and you don't really get that guy very often and you can't sign him in free agency, so you really need to go and make this happen now. Figure it out, because you're New Orleans and this is kind of a lottery ticket. You need to cash it in. Not in the NFL. Everybody's on the same playing field. Everybody's got same draft picks, same salary cap. Everybody's got access to better players if you have a bad season, easier schedule if you have a bad season. You can rebuild this thing pretty quick and get back up on top. But sometimes it takes a year or two where you're not pushing for the top. And right now, the Saints are not pushing for the top. So don't overextend yourself to sign Nick Bakhtiari to a 3-year deal when you don't know if he can play anymore. Don't trade all those 5th-round picks to move up and take another player in the 3rd round. Just chill. And that's what they're doing. Y'all know, like, I haven't had glowing things to say about the direction of the Saints since about Halloween of last year. This continues to look okay. And it's not completely foreign to anything they've ever done. Certainly, they go out and sign guys on 1-year deals every single year. That's a very, very common practice in the NFL with guys who are nearing the end of their career, whether they're former stars who are 34 or guys who have been rotational players in their late 20s off their rookie deal looking for a new home. But this, to me, is the right way to go about things. And it may not be the most interesting thing in the world as of Thanksgiving of this coming year. It just may not be. They may be 4 or 5 games under 500 again. But it's what need to happen. And I think most Saints fans that I talk to, most Saints fans that are in the Bayou Ford chat, most Saints fans that interact with this station realize, like, it was a great run. Tried to kind of maintain it by keeping Dennis Allen and keeping Pete Carmichael and keeping Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and keeping Lattimore and Ramchick and Cam Jordan and kind of keeping the band together and just trying to make it work when Sean Payton and Drew Brees left. But it didn't. This is where you got to be. I think things are moving in the right direction right now by actually taking a step backwards. So Saints go out and make a free agent signing. Lucas Patrick, offensive lineman, who has played all 3 interior spots and will add some depth and versatility on the middle of that line for the New Orleans Saints. We'll see if injuries force him into some action here. So our Saints coverage all year long is going to be found on YouTube at Hunt on Saints. Appreciate it if you like, subscribe, rate, and review. Always appreciate y'all for checking us out on YouTube. Very, very, very much appreciated. All right, Glenn West talking some Tigers coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from the original Walk-Ons, Burbank at Nicholson. Wes Reynolds joins us from VEASAN. Scott Rabelais from The Advocate and professional sports capper Randy McKay. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. at Walk-Ons, the original, on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Pluckers brings you our baseball breakdowns each and every day here on the Hunt Palmer Show all season long. So let's get into some baseball with our guy Glenn West, senior writer over at Go 24/7. Glenn, how are you?
I'm okay, Hunt. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Here's an open-ended question. Does LSU have a good baseball team?
I think they have a talented baseball team. I think there's probably a difference, though, between talent and being good on the field and showing it, day in and day out. And I think this is a team right now that just hasn't been able to put it together for, really all conference play in terms of just 3 games in 3 days. What you want to see out of this group, it hasn't been consistent in the pitching, the hitting, and defense. I mean, I think that, there's a lot of talented players on this team. They just have not been able to combine those 3 elements of the game very often this season to help them get to a point where they could be an NCAA tournament team.
Let's just talk about hypotheticals. Why not? We're here. If they got into a regional with a 4 seed from the Mountain West, a 2 seed from the Big 12, and a 1 seed from the ACC, would you give them a chance to win the regional? That's a hypothetical with a lot of variables, but just tossing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably have to really you'd have to win the first 2 games. I just don't see any other way you get out of a regional with this team without winning the first 2 games. I mean, Gage Jump and Luke Holman are kind of going to have to be the guys that would take you through those 2 games in the hypothetical. Maybe you can save one of your big bullpen arms for one of those potential game 3s, but I mean, we just saw it this last weekend. Even when you have all your big bullets, you're using them in the same game, it doesn't always, equal success for this group. And there's just such a small margin for error that I think that you'd have to win those first 2 games in a theoretical regional, and then kind of hope you can piece it together from a pitching perspective in the last, kind of game or 2 that you'd have to play in that situation.
Again, we're tossing around hypotheticals and ifs and whatnot because LSU's just not in a very good spot, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But I said this on Monday, and I wrote this for my column, that if Alex Milazzo, hypothetically, throws that ball to first base properly and LSU wins that game on Friday, then LSU would have been 7-1 in the last 8 Holman jump starts. Have they kind of been the guys you thought they would be over the last month when we saw them in February?
Yeah, I think in particular with jump, we just saw you could see the talent back in the fall. They were kind of slow in bringing him back, but you could certainly see it, and even leading up into the season this spring, and in the non-conference as well. Like the talent stuff, the velocity is all there. He mixes his pitches well. I think those two. I think you could probably say that Luke Holman has not been at his best, and that they've won kind of, at times in spite of some of the deficiencies that he's had on the mound in terms of his command. Like this past weekend, for example, I didn't think he pitched awesome. I mean, he pitched around a lot of trouble and was able to get himself out of it, which is a good thing. But he hasn't certainly been the pitcher these last 3 or 4 weeks that he was early in the season. So, I do think you could survive in that kind of hypothetical situation there with those two guys kind of getting you through. Maybe you lean on a Christian Little and a Griffin Herring as well to kind of help, kind of cap games off. But I do think that for the most part, they've been kind of what you expect. I mean, they're both kind of sitting there around a 3.0 ERA and, have kind of kept you afloat here these last month in particular with some of the inconsistencies that you've had across the roster.
All right, back to reality. Did they lose their chance to make the NCAA tournament this past weekend?
I don't think they lost it, but they certainly have zero margin for error. I mean, I think short of a sweep here against Ole Miss or winning 2 out of 3 this weekend, if you win 2 out of 3, you probably have to go pretty deep into the SEC tournament just to kind of give yourself the amount of wins that will be required to get in there. But I do think just from like an RPI standpoint, they're still in an okay spot to kind of get in that large bid if they are able to kind of win this series and make a little bit of a run in the tournament. But it's a lot of ifs. I mean, there's just not a lot of confidence you can have, especially with the way they kind of blew this series this last weekend, and you were sitting there with 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, down to your final out with your top bullpen ace, on the mound, and you just weren't able to finish it off. So I don't think you can go into this weekend with Ole Miss with any confidence that you're going to certainly take 2 out of 3 or sweep them or something like that.
Why are they in this position?
Yeah, man, that's a big question. I think that they've really they've really struggled, I guess, just with the consistency element of it. I mean, I know that goes back to my first answer, but they've just really struggled to kind of have the pitching, the defense, and the hitting kind of marriage, one another for a consistent amount of time. And it's really, I mean, there's been a couple games this year. I mean, obviously this last weekend, Florida game 2, one of those Vanderbilt games. I believe it was the Vanderbilt game 2 as well, where they had leads late and they just weren't able to hold them. And I think there's a lot that goes into that. There were some defensive errors in there. There was obviously some pitching mistakes. There was not enough offense. In the Sunday game this last weekend, they pitched well enough to win that game on Sunday, but they just didn't hit. And by the time they kind of got it going a little bit there at the end, they just kind of ran out of outs and ran out of time. So, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of look at this. I don't think that they've gotten the development from all of the young players that they were hoping to get this year from a consistency standpoint. I think you look at Jared Jones, and he's probably the one that you would point to and say, okay, that guy has taken a huge leap in terms of their returning players. And this was a roster that was primarily built on, returning players taking that next step in their development, and they just haven't seen that across the board this season.
Glenn West is our guest, senior writer of Go 24/7, chatting a little bit about LSU baseball here as they enter the final weekend of the regular season. Ole Miss comes in playing better. We thought LSU was playing better, and they let one get away over the weekend in Tuscaloosa. Is a sweep something you can even consider?
I don't think so. I mean, I just don't. They haven't swept the team all season in conference play. I mean, I guess you can kind of hold out hope that they can kind of get it together for 3 straight games, but I mean, they haven't been able to do it so far.
That makes things difficult. How many do you think they need to win in Hoover if they win 2 this weekend?
I would probably say at minimum 2 games. I think you probably would have to win certainly that first game with, I don't even know if you'd be able to get one of your I guess you could probably get, a Thursday to Tuesday window there with somebody like Jump. I guess maybe he could make that turnaround in 5 days, but it would be tough. You'd have to win those first couple games and kind of put yourself in the winner's bracket there and see if you can't ride it out for a deeper run. But, stranger things have happened. Teams get hot late in the season. Like we said, LSU has a talented team. They just haven't shown that they can be consistent enough to do it, day in, day out on the field. So that's when you're talking about tournament time, that's the most important time you have to be able to do it. And we'll see if they're able to kind of cobble together some stuff here. But they kind of, you get to the point in the season where you are what your record says you are, and right now this is a team that doesn't have a lot of margin for error in terms of what they can go out there and do over the next couple of days.
This is a tough one because I'm asking you to get inside someone else's mind, but you're around Jay Johnson a good bit. What do you think he's learned from this year?
Yeah, I think probably the first and foremost what he's learned is, the player development and all that stuff is obviously extremely important, but I think you need to have the right mix of veterans around some of these younger players in the case that they don't develop the way that you're hoping. And I think they probably missed on a couple of those guys in the transfer portal this year. Braswell has been a good, solid hitting option. He hasn't been exactly the defensive whiz that I think most people kind of needed from that shortstop position this year, but he's done fine at the plate. Mac Bingham is a guy who, he came in this weekend and he had one at bat or two at bats, and one of those at bats was a weak pop fly in the bottom of the ninth that kind of hurts your chances there at making a comeback. And so, I do think that this is going to be an important offseason for Jay to kind of bring in the right transfers in the field. I think he's been able to show that he can recruit good pitching talent out of the portal with Paul Skeens obviously last year, and certainly with Holman and Jump this year. You've seen Christian Little develop, as a second-year portal guy. But getting the position player stuff right for next year is going to be extremely important. And, one silver lining here is if LSU doesn't go deep into the tournament or anything, that just gives Jay Johnson a whole ton of extra time to go out there and recruit the right players and the right people that he knows can come in and make this a turnaround that they can respect.
He's Glenn West, Go 24/7 senior writer over there for all your team coverage, all your recruiting coverage, football, basketball, baseball. It is all right there at Go 24/7. He's with us every single Tuesday on the Hunt Palmer Show. Thanks, Glenn.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
I just tossed that first question over to Glenn because I think it's an interesting talking point when you consider something so subjective as good. I think LSU has a pretty good team. I think that it is not nearly to the level that LSU expects its team to be, which is the elite of the elite in college baseball. And they have not played exceptionally well in some tight moments that have cost them some games. But you look at the non-conference records, you see what they do in the pre-conference, and then you realize the bear that you're in week and week out, relative to the landscape in college baseball, LSU is good. Relative to the teams that they have to beat to get where they're trying to go, they're not good enough. And that's been the difficult thing to swallow at this point. Now, they can salvage this whole thing over the course of 72 hours if they go out there and beat Ole Miss 3 times. And most teams in the league have had one of those weekends where everything's clicked. Missouri swept Florida, for instance. That just doesn't happen all that often. And so it's possible, but it's a long shot. The question is, what if it's 2 out of 3? What do they need to do in Hoover and all that? And to get those answers, we're going to talk to Mark Etheridge of D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team coming up here in 15 minutes. He's the guy who knows the RPI, the guy who knows the metrics, the guy who knows the formulas, and he'll let us in on to where LSU stands right now and what needs to happen over the next week and change. So looking forward to our conversation with Mark coming up here in 15 minutes. We'll close out hour number 1 with a mock draft. How badly will LSU's signing class in baseball potentially be affected in this draft coming up in July? We'll get a first look at that coming up next.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit us at LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino this spring for all the hoops and hockey playoff action. We got the biggest screens, the best food and drink. Plus, we're giving away PIN cash bonuses and prizes to PIN Play Rewards members. If you're not a member, no big deal. Just join today by downloading and registering for the PIN Play app from the App Store. Unlock all the fun, including a chance to win up to $2,000 in PIN cash. All this and more. Make LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino your spring sports viewing headquarters. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Power up your next project with John Deere Deals by Sunshine. Whether you're working hard or playing hard, our knowledgeable team will help you find the right product for you. Ask us about our amazing tractor package promotions. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealers in Louisiana. LSU defensive lineman Dominic McKinley is here, and we'll talk recruiting with Shay Dixon. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
So we are exactly 2 months away from the Major League Baseball draft. It'll be on July the 14th. And leading up to that, we'll certainly have a lot of conversations about what is important in terms of LSU's current roster, as well as the signing class and who LSU will lose to the professional ranks. I wanted to take Jonathan Mayo's first mock draft here and just kind of briefly run over some names. We're not going to spend 20 minutes on this. It's more of a 6-minute type deal. But I just wanted to kind of get a feel for how things look here in the first round. And there are some familiar names here when you're looking at LSU's baseball program. Number 1 pick goes to Cleveland this year. Charlie Condon is who Mayo forecast. Condon just had an absurd year. He's got the Reds taking Travis Bazzana, Jack Caglione going 3rd. College names that you'll absolutely recognize early on in this draft. Braden Montgomery going to the A's with the 4th pick. The White Sox taking Nick Kurtz from Vanderbilt at 5. And number 6 is the first LSU name, and it's Connor Griffin, the basically freak from Jackson Prep. He's listed as a shortstop / outfielder in this mock draft. I mean, he is, in terms of talent, up there with everyone in this draft. Now, he doesn't have the proven production of Charlie Condon and Braden Montgomery and Jack Caglione and that type of deal, but Griffin is elite size, elite athlete, crazy power, great speed, huge arm. Connor Griffin's not coming to LSU. He has made it clear in some interviews that he's done with various media sources that he's ready to start his professional career. He's going to be a top 10 pick, I think, is conservative. It's potential that he could go in the top 5 picks, but he's 6th here. Connor Griffin, not a name I think you're going to need to know all that well. Hagen Smith here to the Cardinals at 7. J.J. Weatherholt's an awesome hitter from West Virginia going to the Angels. And to get your next LSU flavor here, you're going to fall back to Tommy White, who I think was thought of as potentially a top 10 pick this year. Oh, sorry. Tommy White is coming up here. But before we get to Tommy White, the second almost surefire high schooler that LSU is not going to get to campus is Cam Caminetti. Ken Caminetti's nephew, the late baseball all-star. Caminetti is probably a left-handed pitcher. He's a really good hitter as well, but I think for the purposes of professional baseball, he's going to be a left-handed pitcher. He throws almost 100 miles an hour in high school and has a really good slider as well. He's pigeonholed here at number 18. Now, those two, Connor Griffin and Ken Caminetti, I think, are not coming to LSU. Tommy White is here at number 20. He clearly won't be back either, as he's now been in college for 3 years. The most interesting draft prospect to me, and I think a lot of people would roll their eyes at this, and we'll see, the most interesting draft prospect to me that I'm looking at in this first round is the final pick of the first round here. Jonathan Mayo has William Schmidt, the right-handed pitcher from Catholic High, right down the street from where I'm sitting right here, going at 30th. The blurb here reads, "This is the high school arm that I had trouble placing. Talent-wise, he could go much higher with one of the best breaking balls of any pitcher in the class. Prep right-handers do often slip a bit, but the Rangers aren't afraid to take chances." I'm less concerned with the Rangers here. I don't care about the team. It's more so based on the talent, the player, and where he could be slotted. He's ranked number 12 on the big board here from Jonathan Mayo, and by any account, William Schmidt would not be a player I would expect LSU to get to campus. He's very likely a first-round pick. He's guaranteed to get first-round phone calls, and he's a top 15 talent in this draft. He throws 95 to 97, and as Mayo mentioned, he's got a fantastic breaking ball, and he's been sensational for Catholic High throughout his prep career. He was committed to Mississippi State, ended up flipping that to LSU, and I don't know William Schmidt. I've never spoken to him one time in my life. I've heard from a lot of people that his family is a big LSU family. That can't hurt. But what does hurt, and I use air quotes here because it's a great thing for the young man and his family, is $4 million. That can hurt LSU in a hurry. So if William Schmidt was a right-handed pitcher from Rancho Cucamonga, California, or Jersey City, New Jersey, I would throw my hands up and go, there's no shot here. He's too talented, and he's going to be a professional baseball player pretty quickly. When you go to Catholic High, I give you a chance. If he was at U High, I'd give us a chance. If he went to Denham Springs, I'd give us a chance. And when I say us, I mean LSU, and I say that a little bit in jest. I would think right now, as I look at this draft, that William Schmidt is likely to sign a professional contract. I don't think it's a slam dunk. Now, keep in mind, I'm the guy that told you that Chase Shores was a slam dunk to sign a professional contract, and he didn't. I don't remember doing this with Cam Johnson last year, but I feel like I probably told you that he's not coming to school. So you never quite know, and neither one of those two guys is from Louisiana. There's a number involved. There's a family involved. There's an agent/handler involved. And there are professional baseball teams involved, and you never know quite how the math works out. But for the purposes of this, Jonathan Mayo's got 3 LSU signees going in the first round of the draft. Not posted here is Derek Curiel, who is a really, really good athlete and an outfielder whose hitting ability may drive him down out of the position that he thought he was going to be in 18 months ago. And if you could get Derek Curiel to campus, I would suggest that would be awesome. Not posted here, and he was never really going to be a first-round pick, is Cade Arambidi. Thought of as one of, if not the top prep catcher in the country. And you realize that Alex Milazzo and Hayden Travinski are moving on. Jerry Jones hasn't been a catcher, and he may be moving on, even though he's not listed here in the first round. Maybe Cade Arambidi can be a guy that comes in and gives you some valuable time as a freshman catcher, as Brady Neal did early in the year last year. I think those are the first 2 guys I would look at and say, hey, well, maybe you can get those guys to campus. Josh Pearson's younger brother is thought of as a draft risk, but I would hope that I could get him. His name is John Pearson. And then David Hogue, an infielder from Grand Prairie, Texas, goes to Manfield High School as a switch hitter, really good frame, is another talented dude. This is a monster signing class for LSU with some really, really high-level names in it. If you could get the majority of them to campus, you would feel really, really good about that. And, of course, Jay Johnson's going to have to go into the transfer portal as well. Hopefully he doesn't get a head start on that, and LSU's had to do a regional next 2 weeks, but we'll see. That's it for hour number 1 here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're going to pause for SportsCenter. When we come back, Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. He gets the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee stuff. We're going to talk to him about it coming up next.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet. The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Power up your next project with John Deere Deals by Sunshine. Whether you're working hard or playing hard, our knowledgeable team will help you find the right product for you. Ask us about our amazing tractor package promotions. Learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
I'm Christine Lisi. The Caitlin Clark WNBA era is officially here. About a month after being drafted first overall, Clark will make her WNBA debut tonight. She and the Indiana Fever at the Connecticut Sun, 7:30 Eastern, ESPN2. Clark will have an instant impact, believes ESPN NBA analyst Tim Legler.
Her playmaking immediately is going to make her team better. It's going to translate to the next level. And that ultimately, I think, guarantees her success at a very high level. She sees things and reads and anticipates reactions of defense inherently. It's incredible at one of the highest levels I've ever seen.
The Bruins without injured captain Brad Marchand for a must-win Game 5 second-round Stanley Cup playoff series against the Panthers tonight, 7 Eastern ESPN. Timberwolves center Rudy Gobert fined $75,000 by the NBA for his money gesture sign directed at the officials during Game 4 of that second-round series. Minnesota-Denver Game 5 tonight, 10 Eastern ESPN. Tee Times pairings announced for the PGA Championship. Scotty Scheffler, Wyndham Clark, Brian Harmon, 2:13 Eastern. Coverage ESPN+.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy, coming on Wednesday. I'll tell you why I'm concerned about Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavs. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Pluckers Wing Bar. Sharif Ishak talking Saints and Pels 30 minutes from right now. Let's go to Jim's Firearms Hotline to lead off hour number 2. We're talking college baseball with Mark Etheridge. Of course, you hear from Joe Healy every single Thursday. He and Mark, the SEC Extra team over at D1 Baseball. Mark joins us now. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great. This is my favorite time of year, going down the stretch run. You're trying to figure out, who's going to host, who's going to make the field, what teams need to do, who's going to win conference titles. There's just so much going on. I just love this time of year.
I do too, usually. But right now, we're in a little bit of an uncomfortable situation here in Baton Rouge. Usually, we're trying to talk about top 8 seeds hosting. Now, LSU's clinging to any hope they could possibly make the field. So before we dive into LSU's numbers and their situation, I just want your assessment of what the committee is actually looking at here when they're looking at teams that are on the bubble. Because when I talk about it on the radio, I talk about RPI, I talk about the quad 1 wins, I look at maybe the road. But what are they looking at when they're looking at the bubble?
Well, if you listen to the committee, all of those are factored equally. However, as you might imagine, everyone's going to weight things a little bit different. So every committee member is going to feel, one guy may think, how you did in your conference is more important, while another may feel RPI is more important. Another might feel, who have you beaten, right? Those kinds of things. So it's, you're basically trying to be as good as you can in as many areas as you can, and hope that the gumbo as it comes together is better than whoever you're being judged against. And I do think that, you look at the SEC, it's going to be really interesting to see how they're viewed, because the SEC, and for that matter, the ACC as well, have really taken a step forward this year. They have separated themselves from the rest of college baseball. And while there's some good teams in other leagues, there's just not the depth, there's not the week-in, week-out competition that those two teams have. And I'm curious to see how the committee will adjust to that, because that's our changing landscape as we go through with all the realignment. All of the power and all of the best players, the best coaches, the financial resources are all being consolidated into a few programs that are primarily in those top leagues. So how will the committee adjust, or will they adjust, or will they just continue to do things, as they've done previously?
I would suggest in a vacuum that LSU's RPI is in a reasonable spot for a bubble team sitting there at 34. My concern is I look up and I see Florida at 29, who's ahead of LSU and beat LSU. I see Ole Miss at 24, who's right there on the bubble as well. I see Vanderbilt ahead of LSU as well. And I'm looking at Southeastern Conference teams, and I'm going, well, if I look at the RPI, LSU's behind all of them. And if I look at Quad 1 wins, LSU's behind all of them. That's a concern, correct?
It is. And the other part of this is, while there's always a first, no 12 and 18 team in the SEC has ever received an at-large bid.
Right.
Now, Arizona got in at 12 and 18 last year from the Pac-12. They went on a monstrous run in the Pac-12 tournament and went all the way to the finals and lost and got an at-large bid. So there's a little bit of a bridge there, but I do think that, unless LSU sweeps, you're going to really have to do some damage in Hoover if you go by, if you try to be that first team that goes from 12 and 18 to at-large. And sweeping is hard, man. I mean, this is a really tough league. Ole Miss is playing well. I would have liked LSU's chances a lot more before I watched Ole Miss against A&M last weekend. So they're playing their best ball of the year, which you want to do down the stretch. So it just raises the stakes even more, because it's not just a big series for LSU. Ole Miss is a game ahead in the standings. Should they take 2 of 3 in the box this weekend, they're the ones looking at a potential, at-large berth. So there's a lot to play for. It's a really fun series, and I can't wait for it to get started.
So let's play out both of those scenarios. We think if LSU gets 2 out of 3 this weekend and they go 12 and 18 in the league, they got to get to the weekend in Hoover, and those wins in Hoover would kind of be added to the pot, you think, by the committee, like they did Arizona last year, and potentially could be enough?
I think it could. The other thing that I kind of alluded to earlier that eventually is going to change, in my opinion. Of course, I'm just one man, but I do think that because the strength of the SEC is more, and continues to improve, that maybe what used to be the standard, the 13 and 17 threshold with an under 30 RPI, and it gets adjusted, right, as the whole landscape of college baseball adjusted, and maybe it's 12 and 18 and with a under 30 RPI going forward, right? Especially maybe it starts this year, or maybe it starts when Texas and Oklahoma join next year, and there's even more power. Those are two regional clubs right there, no doubt. So it's just it's kind of a moving target, because one, LSU can only do what they can do, right? You can only win the games in front of you, and you're going to get a chance, but you're going to play some really challenging teams in Hoover. And the other part of this is you don't know what's going to happen around the rest of the country. Will there be stolen bids? Will that bubble shrink? What are the other bubble teams that you're being judged against? What do they do? All right, so it's all of that stuff that you cannot control. And it, for me, for guys like me who follow this for a living, it really makes it fascinating. But I can imagine how frustrating it is, if you're a team, a fan of one of these teams on the bubble, because you could do everything you're supposed to do. And what if the other guy does everything they're supposed to do? And the other guy does everything they're supposed to do. There's not room for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's the problem you get when you find yourself on the bubble this time of year, that you don't control your own destiny at all, unless you win the automatic.
Right, and LSU does control Ole Miss's destiny for the next 3 days. If LSU, and we play the other side of things, if you do sweep Ole Miss and you get to 13 league wins, and at that point your RPI would be in the top 30 because you're 34 right now, 3 wins over number 24 Ole Miss, you would be in the top 30. Would LSU be okay to lose on Tuesday in Hoover and feel okay?
I think so. I think if you win 13 in this version of the SEC, especially with the teams that LSU would have faced, because, the schedules are unbalanced. You got to play, some of these top 5, top 8 teams in the country week in, week out in the conference. I think LSU would get in. The more likely scenario is 2 out of 3. That's kind of where things fall in the SEC. It's like 65% of the home SEC conference or the conference games are won by SEC home teams. So that's the most likely play. And if that's what happens, then you're really looking at having to do some damage in Hoover.
We shall see. It's going to be really, really interesting. I know that you and Joe cover this league, not just the selection committee, but the league week to week. I'm curious your thoughts on Ole Miss. You mentioned that they're playing better. What are they doing better that we'll see at the box this weekend?
Well, they haven't pitched very well for the majority of the year, and they found some things the last couple of weekends. A&M can really swing it. I mean, and Ole Miss was able to really handle them those first couple of games to keep them down, and kind of like what LSU did. So I do think that in some ways they're similar, LSU and Ole Miss, in that they're a couple of really good starters. There's not a ton of pitching depth, at least not that you can depend on. And then offensively has been kind of hit and miss. There's some guys you definitely don't want to give into. I mean, there's no Tommy White, but there's some pretty good hitters in that lineup. And I do think that they can score, especially, as it warms up in Baton Rouge in May, and the ball can kind of fly. And Ole Miss, they need to hit home runs to be successful. So if you're LSU, you got to keep the ball in the park, make them earn it, make them bunch hits, and then also put the ball in play. Don't strike out. Ole Miss is the worst defensive team in the SEC. So you got to put some pressure on, and you can't strike out a lot. You absolutely make them feel the ball and play catch.
You want to learn more about where LSU stands on the NCAA tournament bubble, the Nerdcast D1 Baseball with Mark Etheridge and the whole crew over there will be up here shortly. We appreciate some time, Mark. We'll let you get to it.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it, man.
He's Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. It is fascinating. Mark does this incredibly well. He's the most trusted guy over at D1 Baseball in terms of what these metrics actually mean on Memorial Day when the selection committee puts that field together. And so to me to say I agree with him, well, obviously he's the guy that is the best at this on the national scene. But the more you look at it, like LSU with a sweep here, I think is a slam dunk. I mean, you've knocked Ole Miss then out of the field, which takes a spot that's available to you from an SEC team. Your RPI would be in the 20s, and you'd have 13 league wins. I had been waffling between 13 and 14, and had told you 3 weeks ago, hey, I just don't know if I feel great about 13 unless you get that A&M series. Well, you got the A&M series. I think 13 at this point feels like you're in even if you lose on Tuesday. I'm interested in Mark talking about 12 because I've given 12 no thought because it's never happened. You're going to see a graphic that the SEC Network will probably show this weekend that says that 12 SEC win teams have gotten in 3 times. That is true. All 3 of them were 12 and 17. So they did not play the 30th game. You lost it due to weather or whatever the case may be. And so that may help your RPI or whatever the case may be. But it's never been 12 and 18. But Arizona did get in because they went nuts in the conference tournament. And I can paint you a picture where LSU gets to the weekend in the conference tournament. It's going to take some sort of crazy effort on Tuesday, likely with a bullpen day. But all of a sudden, if you can win on Tuesday, you'll probably throw Jump on Wednesday, and you'll probably throw Holman on Thursday, and those guys have been good. They've been good against A&M. They've been good against Alabama. They've been good against Missouri and Auburn. And you could win those games. Now, you're going to probably have to face another ace, but all of a sudden, you start the SEC tournament 3-0, things can happen a little differently. And that's not something I had entertained, 1, because I didn't know the Arizona stat, and 2, I look at this, and if you're the committee, objectively, and you're looking at the RPI, Kentucky's 1, A&M's 2, Georgia's 3, Arkansas is 4. Then you got North Carolina, but Tennessee 6. That's 5 of the top 6 in the SEC. Alabama makes it 6 of the top 11 in the SEC, and LSU played 3 against Alabama, and 3 against Tennessee, and 3 against Arkansas, and 3 against Texas A&M. That's 12 games against the top 11 in the RPI. Like, that's just different than if you're in the Big 12. It just is. The league's better. The top RPI team in the Big 12 is Oklahoma at 15. So maybe there's some more leniency to the SEC. We're grasping here at straws. I get it. And that's the only discussion we have. It doesn't do me really any good to sit here and say, well, it might just win one this week. Well, then the season's over. Like, you got to go win the SEC tournament. The interesting talking points that we play hypotheticals with are, what if you get to that bubble? And that is 12 and 13. And I've kind of adjusted it back one. I was on 13 and 14. I think 13 is probably enough at this point. But again, there's a lot of variables that go on around the country. If you're LSU, you got to take care of Ole Miss this weekend, and it would really, really be a good thing for LSU if Florida lost 2 of 3 this weekend to Georgia and then went to Hoover and lost. And then they're ineligible for the tournament. And if that happens, that's 2 spots that you will have knocked out from in front of you in the RPI for potential spots. And that would be Florida ineligible and an Ole Miss team that was 12 and 17, 12 and 18. So we'll see. Interesting stuff there from Mark Etheridge of D1 Baseball. We'll step aside. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about LSU's basketball schedule coming up next year before we get to Sharif Ishak with the Saints and the Pels. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you just don't like the situation currently with your closets, fix it. Customize a closet. Such an easy process with One Bath and Closets. It starts with a free consultation. They come in, they give you a questionnaire. Okay, what do you have? What do you want? Well, here's what we can do. Take some measurements. And it's going to be so productive on a couple of different levels. 1, it's going to be customized to your exact needs. 2, it's going to look gorgeous. I've seen pictures of David's great work over the years, and it is fantastic stuff. If you'd like to see some of the pictures of their great projects, go to OneBathAndClosets.com. And when you do that free consultation, tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you to One Bath and Closets. $1,000 off of your project. It's a huge help. Just because David Duvall's an awesome dude and wants to help you and get that customized closet in your home. They'll help you out on the bathroom side of things, too, with that $1,000 off. Go to the website. It's OneBathAndClosets.com. OneBathAndClosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary. For those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years.
Join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from the original Walk-Ons, Burbank at Nicholson. Wes Reynolds joins us from VEASAN. Scott Rabelais from The Advocate, and professional sports capper Randy McKay. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. at Walk-Ons, the original, on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Get to Sharif here coming up in 10 minutes, talking all things New Orleans Saints and Pelicans related. LSU's basketball opponents in the Southeastern Conference next year were made available, and it's a little more interesting this time around because Texas and Oklahoma, officially part of the SEC, coming up here later this summer. So I wanted to take a look at it and just briefly give some brief thoughts. We don't know exactly what these teams are going to look like, and got some interesting storylines that have to develop in the course of the league. But you still have your 3 permanent opponents in SEC play. And for LSU, that is Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. LSU plays all 3 of those teams home and away. The rest of the league, you either play home or away. And so I'm looking at it, who's coming to the PMAC this coming year. Well, Auburn's had a really nice program. Bruce Pearl's done a great job there. They'll be coming to the PMAC. Florida, which really finished the year strong, under Coach Golden, did a really nice job there. They'll be coming in. South Carolina had a better year than really anybody expected last year. We'll see if they can follow that up with Lamont Paris at the helm. But that's 3 teams that had good years this past year. Tennessee is really moving on from a lot of that really, really loaded roster that they've had the last couple of years with Santiago Vescovi and with Josiah Jordan-James. And obviously, you lose the Southeastern Conference Player of the Year off that roster as well. So they're going to be reloading a bit, but Rick Barnes always has a good team there. So that's another good one. Texas, I don't know a ton about Texas. LSU played them last year. It was a mediocre team in the Big 12, but the Big 12 is a really, really good league. So we'll see what Texas is. And then you also will play Vanderbilt at home here at the PMAC. But that's a tough run of teams at home. Auburn, Tennessee have a really good track record. Florida and South Carolina are coming off really good years. And then Vanderbilt is what it is. They're probably not going to be very good, and so you'll take that one at home. As far as on the road, Alabama, pretty good. LSU will not have the Tide coming into the PMAC this year. It'll just be a trip to Coleman. Georgia, Mike White, they're not great. That's a winnable game just about every year, and that's a road game that you've got. Kentucky, who knows? Mark Pope has put this thing together very, very differently than John Calipari would have. That huge signing class John Calipari had inked, it's basically all in Fayetteville now. So you will go to Rupp. They will not come to you. I don't know what that team's going to look like. For the first time in a long time, Kentucky's kind of a wild card. I could see a situation where Mark Pope brings in the right ingredients and coaches them up a little bit better, and they're better than they have been. I can see a situation where there's a transition period, and it's just not the Kentucky team that we're used to seeing. But LSU will go to Rupp. LSU will go to the Hump to play Mississippi State. A couple of tournament appearances in a row for Chris Jans there. They'll have to do it without Tolu Smith coming up this year, but he's obviously got some young talent on that team, and LSU got that loud and clear here in the PMAC earlier this year. Missouri is a game LSU will play on the road. They lost every league game this year, so I kind of like that one being on the schedule along with Georgia. And then Oklahoma has had a pretty good program as well. You will play those guys on the road. It's pretty balanced. It's not one of those where you've got a lot of your tough games on the road or at home. I would suggest the most consistent programs in the SEC with coaches returning are going to be Auburn, Alabama, Mississippi State, and Tennessee, and you split those completely, I would suggest the worst programs in the league are Vanderbilt and Missouri. You split those. Texas and Oklahoma are the new kids on the block. You split those. And then, what are South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State? You split those 2 and 2 as well. As I mentioned at the top, you do have Arkansas, A&M, and Ole Miss all home and road. So John Calipari in his fancy new sweater will be here in the PMAC. You'll also go to Bud Walton to see his team. If you haven't been paying attention, John Calipari's basically taken all the 5 stars that he had committed and signed at Kentucky and brought them over to Arkansas. He also brought in maybe the best shooter in the transfer portal statistically from last year is going to be there. So I again think John Calipari at Arkansas is interesting. I've fascinated by John Calipari for a long time. I don't respect him a ton as an X&O guy. I do think that he's probably a guy that I'd like to sit around, play around to golf with, drink a beer with, because he's got a lot of stories and a lot of energy, and he's just an affable guy, and that's why he's such a great recruiter. And I think that it was a really good hire by Arkansas to bring him in and raise the floor of your program. John Calipari is not way over the hill. He's not 78 years old. He's a guy that is going to be able to recruit right now, and he's going to bring in a higher level of talent to Arkansas than they've had since Nolan Richardson's run. Muss had a couple of really good teams. I would suggest that wasn't a bunch of all-NBA guys. Now, there were NBA players on those teams, but not a bunch of all-NBA guys. Calipari may have some all-NBA guys that come through there. Whether or not he can coach them, we'll see. But if he can do a lot of the things he did at Kentucky, at Arkansas, they'll be thrilled with it. If he can get to a Final Four, get to a couple of Elite Eights, make the Sweet 16 a good bit. If he produces the results he's produced the last 3-4 years, then yeah, they'll think that's a little ridiculous. But for me, like that, he's injected a lot of excitement into that deal, and I think it's interesting. As far as LSU goes, right now as I look at the roster, I am a little bit concerned with the rim protection. It's not that they don't have the size. It's just not size that's proven it can protect the rim. I don't think of Jalen Reed as a rim protector. I don't think of Damian Collins as a guy who's been an impactful college player, although he was a McDonald's All-American that John Calipari recruited at Kentucky. I don't know how much he can help you there. I don't know that Robert Miller is a guy that I'm prepared to say is going to step in as a freshman and block a bunch of shots at the rim. But I do think they're going to be fun to watch offensively, especially in the backcourt. They've got a lot of guards that can really handle the ball and can really shoot it. You've got 2 guys coming back, 2 guys on this team that shot better than 40% from 3 last year. That's a huge thing to add to your team. Plus, you've got a couple of guys that Matt McMahon told me on these airwaves last week are really, really good defenders. So I think there's a good blend there. I think he's kind of set out a roadmap that's not exactly like Brian Kelly, but has some of those characteristics of we'd really like to bring in high-level high school players and develop them. I know it's not going to be 3-4 at a time and have them all for 4 years. That's not realistic, but I'd like to have the majority of my team look that way and then fill in some pieces with some older players, I think oftentimes at guard, and that's what they're going to do. I think LSU, as it sit here right now without a great feel for what everybody's got on their roster, but just kind of knowing the way those programs operate, I feel like LSU's kind of right there in the middle. I think they're 7th, 8th, 9th best roster in the league. I think LSU's got a better situation than Missouri, got a better situation than Vanderbilt. I'm not ready to tell you that Lamont Paris is going to have a really good team at South Carolina every year, that Mike White's going to have a really good team at Georgia. I'm just not ready to tell you that. I'm not just completely going to give a default, okay, they're going to be really good to Florida under Todd Golden. Chris Beard, what do you got? I don't know. A&M's going to have a pretty good team, but I think LSU is very much a middle-of-the-pack team, and we'll see if Rick Barnes can keep restocking the shelves, and we'll see if Bruce Pearl has got another really good team. But I think LSU's got a fighting chance next year, and that's a step in the right direction, and I hope so badly they can play themselves onto that bubble into February and play some meaningful games and get into that NCAA tournament in March. I think that's obviously the next step for this LSU basketball team, and I'm hopeful, if not supremely confident, that's going to happen. I think it's a roster that looks good. I just have my concerns, and the league is now very, very good. You've added 2 usually pretty good programs in Kentucky and in Tennessee and Tennessee and Kentucky. That's just Texas and Oklahoma. That's what I was looking for there. And we'll see. Basketball season a little bit down the road, but wanted to hit that while we had a little bit of time. Sharif Ishak coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show
Every shot, every goal, ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to the championship. Exclusive Sportsbook of ESPN is the only place to find special offers and promotions with your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the playoffs. Listen to this. New users, if you don't have ESPN Bet, new users get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. That means it's a risk-free first bet. You lose it, comes right back to you up to $1,000. So download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with the Bears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net. Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealers in Louisiana. LSU defensive lineman Dominic McKinley is here, and we'll talk recruiting with Shea Dixon. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Trucking right along here on a Tuesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show. It's the bottom of hour number 2. That means it's time to go down to New Orleans and chat with Sharif Ishaq from WDSU. He's with us every week on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sharif, how we doing?
Just wonderful, Hunt. Just wonderful.
Just wonderful. Did you make it out to rookie minicamp this weekend?
For a little bit. Not long. Yeah, for a little bit. Hot minute.
What do you think about rookie minicamp? Is that interesting to you?
Not really. No. No, man. None of this off-season stuff is really that interesting to me. I mean, I guess like a little bit of like mandatory minicamp in June is pretty cool. Then training camp is cool, but anything before that it's just the underwear Olympics to me.
Do you believe the Saints are approaching things a little bit differently this offseason? I've made the point that like most of these guys are on one-year free agent deals that are not hamstringing the future. They selected almost all their draft picks, didn't mortgage any of the future. Like it feels like they're taking a little bit of a step back. Do you sense that?
I do. I think they're taking a step back for the future. I like it, not, mortgaging the future, not creating cap hell for the future, being able to like kind of reset the team and doing it in a slow process while not at the same time destroying, the present team. So, yeah, I'll give Mickey Loomis and the front office credit for doing that. I mean, that's, the step that they needed to take. He admitted it. That's what they needed to do. They need to have like somewhat of a soft reset to get this team back into business.
All right, let's play a game here then. I'm going to name a Saints player. You tell me if he is on the team the next time the Saints win a playoff game. Ryan Ramczyk.
Right. No.
Cam Jordan.
Yes.
Marshawn Lattimore.
No.
Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
Derek Carr.
I'll say yes.
Okay. And then I'll go with, let's say, Mario Davis.
Yes.
So you're suggesting the Saints should win a playoff game in the next 2 years?
Yes. And I'm saying Marshawn Lattimore no, because I think they trade him maybe after June 1st or even after this upcoming season. And as far as Ramczyk, I don't even think he'll play.
Yeah. So I guess is there a kind of a fracture between the Saints and Marshawn Lattimore at this point?
I'd say yes, even though publicly they're saying no, and he's on a team and they want him there. But man, look, none of us are stupid, man. We know what's going on. He and Dennis just don't see eye to eye. But Dennis and Marshawn just not there. It's not working out. It may work out for this season. It may work out into training camp. And he might get traded, just like C.J. Gardner-Johnson got traded during training camp.
I'm curious because we saw Derek Carr kind of back and forth with the offensive line last year, and obviously the situation with Michael Thomas and now Dennis Allen and Marshawn Lattimore maybe don't see eye to eye. Are there issues there?
I mean, I think there's just some issues because you go from Sean Payton, who was cool with his players, and he's a guy who's like in the spotlight. Kind of like the players he had on the team when they were there together. It was just like he vibed with them. Dennis isn't like a vibe type of guy. He's one of those guys who just coaches and just stays out the public eye. He doesn't want any of that. And I think he's just a football coach. And I think that Sean was able to put up with it and able to wrangle it in and keep them on track. If anything bad happened, he was able to discipline them and keep the respect. I just think some of the players honestly just don't respect Dennis at times. And I just think he's had enough of it and doesn't want any of those players in his locker room.
So how are you feeling as we sit here in May about the 2024 Saints?
It's crazy to think that they're tied with the Falcons with the easiest schedule in the NFL. But when you look at the teams they're playing, it's going to be tough, Hunt. I mean, I can see why Vegas has 7.5. I feel like Vegas does, 7.5, 7 wins. Right now, if you ask me, I'd have them at 7-10, 8-9 at best. That's what I feel.
Anything you're looking at tomorrow with the schedule reveal?
To me, it's always the primetime games because we have the Monday night games on WDSU, so we're always like, all right, how many primetime games they're going to get? We also have the Thursday night games on WDSU. Of course, the Sunday night games. We're like, are they finally going to get a Sunday night game? They haven't been on Sunday night football since they played the Buccaneers in Tampa in the 2021 season. The game they won 9-0 when Sean Payton had COVID and Dennis had the coach. I'm really looking to see if like NBC is going to say, all right, we'll throw you out there, and which primetime games are going to be, on this is the return of Sean Payton one. It makes obvious sense, but we also thought the same thing with Joe Burrow a couple years ago, and that wasn't a primetime game. So it's always weird to try to guess which primetime games are going to happen because they'll throw like a curveball and you'll get an AFC team in here, and you're like, oh, all right, that kind of doesn't make sense. Like I guess in a way you could say the Raiders because of Derek Carr, Washington Commanders with Jaden returns, the Sean Payton game, Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, Kansas City game maybe, but Kansas City has much better opponents than the Saints that can play in prime time. But yeah, it's always prime time for me.
What's more interesting to you, a guy who covers the Saints and went to LSU? Is it Sean Payton returning to New Orleans, or is it Jaden Daniels playing the Saints?
Not close. It's not close. It's Sean Payton because of what he did for this franchise after Hurricane Katrina, rebuilding this franchise, giving them hope and winning the Super Bowl, starting from that, first home game, the Dome coming. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just way more, it's sexier. I mean, I love Jaden Daniels. I love LSU, but what Sean Payton did for the city of New Orleans and for this franchise is it will never be forgotten. So yeah, that's much a bigger topic.
How will he be received when he's announced on the public address?
Well, he'll get a lot of cheers. He's not getting booed. I understand people frustrated that he retired on a team, quit on a team, but I think that now that they see how things have gone since he left, I think he's going to get a lot of cheers. People are mad at him for leaving because they knew that he left behind, what could have been a good thing and left for an unknown.
It'll be interesting for sure. I'm excited to see what the schedule holds tomorrow when it is announced with the rest of the NFL. Chatting with Sharif Ishak down in New Orleans. Now the Pels season has kind of gotten cold, as they say in the writing world. You don't have the emotions tied to it as things just ended. But do you feel any differently today than you did when the season ended about New Orleans and where they need to go from here?
Nope. They still need to trade Brandon Ingram and find a way to get some talent that works next to Zion Williamson. I think Fletcher's been tweeting a lot of trade machine things, and I'm on board with him. Some of these trades that he's put out there for Brandon Ingram. So yeah, I think they have to find a way to get better. It doesn't necessarily need to involve the stretch big, but they need to involve somebody who can score at will, and make sure that make sure that Zion is getting the ball and it's getting distributed in the right way. So yeah, I'm on board, and that's where I think the first step needs to be.
Where do you stand on a point guard? Because obviously we saw Zion kind of running the point and had a lot of success when B.I. got hurt. So do you feel like that's not as big a need?
I look at an NBA today as a positionless game. I just need somebody who can handle the ball and who can score. I mean, somebody who can really create shots for himself, score, drive to the basket, and make sure Zion gets involved. I don't look at the position point guard because anyone can handle the ball these days in the NBA. So it'd be great if they got someone in that capacity in a trade. If the Brandon Ingram trade does happen, I don't really look at it as PG, SF, SG, center, PF. I just look at it. Give me someone who can facilitate the offense and score at the same time.
We'll see if they can make that happen. Sharif, we appreciate some time. We'll talk next week.
Anytime, Hunt. And hotty toddy. Thank God that they didn't let Texas A&M beat them, because I hate Texas A&M.
No, thank you. I appreciate the time there. That's Sharif Ishak, WDSU down in New Orleans with us every single Tuesday. We needed A&M to beat Ole Miss a couple of times and knock them out of the NCAA tournament, but they didn't do that. They only beat them once. So we'll get Ole Miss coming in here that I think they get 2 out of 3 in Baton Rouge. They will be in the NCAA tournament. We'll have to see. That'll start things up on a Thursday evening. All right, we'll come back and close things out. It's a Tuesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio, video, security solutions, avssla.com is the website. Mitchell Fisher, his local team, fantastic to work with. From our process at our new home, they were awesome. Mitchell cell is 225-439-7920. He was at my home. He was with his team. He was helping to install the speakers, helping to install the security system. And when they left, it was spick and span and everything was completely functional. I don't understand anything that goes on in the technology world. But Mitchell sat down with me for 15 minutes, went over all the apps on my phone, from the security system to how to play the music to how to control the volume, switch things back and forth, how to play things on the patio, how to play things in the kitchen. And it's been a game changer for us. I love to listen to some music or a baseball game even, like tonight while I'm cooking in there. Sometimes Myers wants to go out in the backyard and hit the baseball off the tee 450,000 times in a row. When he does that, it's nice to have some tunes playing so we can put those on outside as well. And it's all due to the folks over at Audio Video Security Solutions. Check them out on Instagram, AVSS_BR. It's Audio Video Security Solutions, online at avssla.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Power up your next project with John Deere Deals by Sunshine. Whether you're working hard or playing hard, our knowledgeable team will help you find the right product for you. Ask us about our amazing tractor package promotions. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of
Join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from the original Walk-Ons Burbank at Nicholson. Wes Reynolds joins us from Beeson. Scott Rabelais from the Advocate and professional sports capper Randy McKay. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. at Walk-Ons, the original on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The NBA playoffs continue on ESPN Radio. Tonight at 9:30, the Nuggets host the Timberwolves, and tomorrow night the Thunder host the Mavericks right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Shout out to Pluckers. We'll be there tonight, 8:30 Nicholson location. Sports trivia like every single Tuesday. Bring a team. Come by yourself. It's always a good time. We'll have the NBA playoffs on. I'll be watching Cubs and Braves. And you can win gift cards, drink some ice-cold beer, and eat some award-winning jumbo chicken wings, including Breggie's Creole Crush. Fantastic stuff over there at Pluckers. So get on by for sports trivia. Coming up tonight, 8:30 Nicholson location. We'll have you out of there by 10 o'clock or so, as we do every single week. All right, Jacob Beck, time for a little take it or leave it.
All righty, first one here. College game day will be in College Station for Texas A&M and Notre Dame on opening weekend. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I think that's good. A&M doesn't get college game day all that often, so should be a good crowd there for them. They're obviously fired up with a new coach. Notre Dame's a national brand. I don't have any issue with that. I think Tuscaloosa, Baton Rouge, Columbus, Ohio, Clemson, South Carolina, they've had their fair share of game days, and I think any opportunity to go somewhere else is good. And I don't know that necessarily think that you need to be in Las Vegas for LSU or in Atlanta for Georgia and Clemson. Like, go to a campus. A&M's got a campus. It's the best on-campus game, those two brands. So I'll be pulling for the Irish, but I think it's a good thing that they're there, so I'll take it.
All right, these reports have been coming out today, and it is confirmed that Green Bay is hiring Doug Gottlieb to be its next head coach. No, not the Packers, the college basketball team. While coaching the basketball team, Gottlieb will continue to do his daily Fox Sports radio show. Take it or leave it.
I gotta leave this.
Yeah.
There's the 2-hour radio show, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that I'm splitting the atom here every day by any stretch. But I do have to prepare a little bit for that, which takes a couple of hours as well. And then you have to be there to do it. And there's a lot that goes into being a college basketball coach. You've got film study and shoot around. And, oh, by the way, you got to go fly places and recruit players and do that. You're on the road for games. Like, that's a crazy job from November through March. And to sit there and do 2 hours of talk radio, what are you going to be talking about, the NFL while you're coaching? That just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I get that Green Bay wants the publicity, and that's why they're doing this. I don't think they're hiring because they think he's the best basketball coach. I think they're doing it because now Green Bay is in the news, which they never would be. But that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to anyone except for maybe Green Bay because they made the decision to hire him. But at the same time, what's worth the publicity of having your name in the news for a few days as opposed to going out and hiring maybe a young and up-and-coming coach where you can actually win some basketball games? I don't see how hiring Doug Gottlieb as he's doing a radio show every day is going to help you out very much.
Breaking down that Phillies-Braves playoff series, some hard-hitting stuff. Oh, by the way, we got a 7 o'clock tip tonight. I'll get to shoot around right after my second break.
Yeah, it seems like a lose-lose either way because he's gonna have to. There's gonna be days where he can't do the show. I mean, there has to be.
I don't know what they're paying him, Green Bay, and I don't know what he makes from the Fox Sports radio show, and I don't know what his financial situation is. But it would seem to me that if he wanted to get into coaching, he wouldn't want to do the radio show.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably being paid a reasonable salary. Maybe it's significantly less than the Fox Sports radio show. I have no idea. I've never listened to Doug Gottlieb on Fox Sports radio. I don't know what all the dollar signs mean, but it seems to me that if I wanted to get into coaching and I got a head coaching job, I didn't have to do it in the assistant gig.
Right.
I got right into head coaching. Like, I'd want to go recruit and want to practice. I wouldn't want to sit there and break down Vikings-Lions. It's just crazy.
Yeah, strange. But moving on here, the NFL announced that the New York Jets will once again play on Monday Night Football in the opening weekend of the season. Take it or leave it.
PTSD for Jets fans. Saw Greenberg threw a fit today on Get Up talking about it. Had to take his jacket off. He was sweating. He said that the Jets should start Tyrod Taylor in that game.
Oh, my
Just don't even send. If they're playing the 49ers way out west, like, this team's got the best defensive line in the world, and we're sending a quarterback up there in the first game. That's his team screaming, yelling. Look, obviously.
Well, will you take it or leave it, Hunt? That's the question.
I'll take it. The Jets are interesting. Aaron Rodgers is interesting. Like him or hate him, he's interesting. And the Jets should have a good football team with a good quarterback. When they don't have a good quarterback, they're not good. They had a good football team outside of the quarterback last year, and we just got burned because they got put on 5 or 6 primetime games with no Aaron Rodgers. He will at least, well, I shouldn't say that. Training camp and preseason, you can get hurt. He should be there. We'll see if he can get through with his Achilles, a full game.
Yeah, moving on here to the last one. A Mariners fan caught consecutive foul balls. 2 pitches, 2 foul balls, and one fan caught them. He set baseball's most unbreakable record. Take it or leave it.
So somebody's going to have to catch 3 in a row?
There's no way.
I mean, I think catching 3 foul balls in a row is more likely at this point than someone breaking Cy Young's 511 win mark. No one's even sniffing 300 these years.
Yeah.
So no one's even getting halfway. So I think you've got a better chance of catching 3 straight foul balls than you do.
I think you're probably right.
Than you do of getting 512 wins.
I immediately would think there's no way, but at the same time, I would assume that the odds for catching 2 foul balls in a row is somewhere in the maybe billions.
Have you ever caught one?
I never caught a foul ball. When we went to the game in Wrigley, I did catch a ball from Ian Happ while they were doing tossing in between innings.
I've never caught a batted ball either. I picked up a home run ball at the old box when I was a freshman, but I didn't catch it. I've never caught a foul ball. But yeah, it's going to be tough to catch 3 foul balls in a row. That's going to be quite a chore for someone.
But the wins is impossible. There's no way.
What about in a Major League Park especially, but maybe someone in an empty college stadium.
Yeah, maybe.
So, where it only seats like
They can just-
3,000,
yeah.
and it's a cold day. And
They can
there's
just
only,
run around,
there's
catch
only
all the
four,
balls,
Yeah,
yeah.
You can go catch a ball. So I got to think the odds of catching 3 straight foul balls are better than someone beating Cy Young's record. So we'll keep it at that for our Tuesday edition here of Take It or Leave It. Open the show today. Really interesting piece that Wilson Alexander put up at The Advocate. Highly recommend you go check it out. Where does LSU stand in the NIL landscape? And I gave my thoughts on some of the quotes. He spoke to one person with knowledge of the Bayou Traditions Collective with anonymity so that they could speak a little bit more freely. He also spoke on the record with Austin Thomas, LSU's general manager. So great stuff at the top of the show. If you want to go back and listen to it, you can do so at Hunt on LSU, our LSU football YouTube channel. Saints agree to terms on a 1-year deal with Lucas Patrick, offensive lineman. What does that mean for the New Orleans Saints? You can find that on YouTube at Hunt on Saints. Glenn West, senior writer at Go 24/7, was with us at 1:30 talking about this baseball team. I talked about Jonathan Mayo's first MLB mock draft. We're 2 months out from that draft, but LSU's going to have some serious players on this team and signees that are considered early in that draft. I kind of gave a first look at that at the end of hour number 1. Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. Where is LSU on the bubble? He let me in on a couple things that I wasn't aware of, and that's why we had Mark on the show at 2 o'clock. Great stuff from him there as LSU gets ready for Ole Miss coming up on Thursday. LSU's basketball opponents in conference play are determined. We talked about that at 2:15 in Sharif Ishak, talking mostly Saints and Little Pels at 2:30. If you missed any of it, you can catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your sound, you can certainly find us. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. It's a gorgeous Tuesday. Hope to see you out at Pluckers this evening. If not, I'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Matt's about to drive you home on After Further Review. Have a great one. You've been listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales service.